Welcome, party people, to episode 3 of season 3 of Law Candor. This is the podcast wholly devoted to pursuing the legal technology revolution. As you all know by now, I'm sure, I am Bill, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Rob Hellewell, and it's nice to have you with us today. We have a good episode that we're gonna play for you today that comes from our Legaltech recording live session. But before we get to that, we want to talk about it. This is our favorite portion of the program. Something we like to call
Sightings of Radical Brilliance.
This is the portion of the program where we bring to you some of the newest and hottest innovations, especially as it relates to technology and, more importantly, sometimes to our industry or the legal profession. And today we have a good one. This is actually the thing I love about this is when I read the article about it. This is real-time translation, right? Real-time translation of when someone's speaking. That technology is currently happening now, and the article talks about how. It relates back to one of my favorite books, which is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you put the babblefish up to your ear and you can actually hear the person speaking in a different language in your native tongue. And I mean, look, we're moving in that direction, but how that is going to affect our industry is really going to be interesting, especially as it relates to foreign language review.
Yeah, it's funny if you kind of go back and look at how this, the translation issue has evolved in, e-discovery and in discovery in general. It was really painful, and it wasn't that many years ago that when foreign languages showed up in a document, and sometimes that could be in the context of a litigation or a regulatory investigation, there was this expectation and this sort of duty that you had to manually translate those documents. And if you've ever kind of like gone through that process, to have somebody do a court certified, level manual translation takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And I saw, in the days I was practicing, 6 and even 7 figures in one case spent on these types of translations. It was out of control.
Yeah, and the alternative that started coming up just a couple of years ago now is these technologies that translate data for you, and sort of, I guess, the first evolution of where this is going, which is that you take the data, you send it out to another vendor, or you have a relativity plugin. I've even seen with certain companies that's really nice. It's nice and easy. You run the data through and it translates it. The problem there is it's obviously not nearly as expensive. The problem there is accuracy. Now, some of these companies have gotten very, very good, but what this article is talking about is an actual word-for-word translation with context and everything else in real time as documents come up. And they're talking about it in speaking, right? Putting an earpiece in and everything being translated to you in real time. So imagine what it can do if it was just the written word and the data can just be submitted in real time. As you bring the data up, it translates in real time. I mean, you're already starting to see some of this in, Facebook and Instagram, where somebody might post in a different language and you could actually click see translation. And they're basic translations, but the real-time aspect of it is really interesting. Rather than having to send it out, reprocess it, run the engine through it, the real-time availability of the translation is what's really interesting.
Well, and the timing is good. It's as the world becomes, more interconnected and multinational, litigation, it just feels like these foreign language documents show up more and more. This is much better than having to hire, a reviewer with specific expertise in that language that, charges or bills out a rate that's 3 or 4 times higher than another reviewer. I think that, we'll continue to see this evolution. It'll be easier, it'll be less expensive, and that's what we like.
Yeah, I think this is going in the right place, an inevitable place, and I think we'll start to see this more and more about what's the acceptable form of technology translations in discovery requests, and certainly from the government. So good stuff.
Yeah, and for those of you that are just tuning into season 3, we're doing something a little bit different for the first 3 episodes. Today's segment is the final segment from our live show. It involves 2 very special guest speakers, T.A. Eggen of Dignity Health and Steve Clark of Dentons, who will discuss the future of on-demand SaaS software. Maybe before we jump into it, could you just maybe each give us a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background? Let's get to know you a little bit.
I'm TA again, TracyAnn. Everyone calls me TA. I manage the day-to-day operations for legal discovery and investigation for Common Spirit Health, which was formerly Dignity Health.
And a Philly gal. I'm Steve Clark. I head up the e-discovery and litigation support function at Dentons nationally.
Well, one thing that you both have in common is that you've made a journey into the SaaS world, as far as e-discovery goes. And we wonder if you could just maybe lay the groundwork for that a little bit. Tell us how you got to, what triggered that decision and made you want to do that. And maybe we could start with TA.
I think one is cost. Also that everybody wants to drive their own car. So being able to take small matters, put them up with a very efficient timeline, understanding what everything goes in there. And then also we're investing internally in people. So we want to know how to search our data. We want to know what we need to do with the AI model. So this is just kind of a growth and a maturation from leveraging SaaS to deliver every single time and build that trust with our outside law firms, as well as investing in the people that are on our team.
What was some of the pain you were experiencing with small matters in general?
Can't you use Adobe? And you get to the point where you can't just keep that train going. So they would say, I don't want to spend, this amount of money on this. And so we had to get creative. I want to invest in paying for people who are smarter than me from Lighthouse to educate me, because I'm not going to know that landscape. What I don't want to pay for is somebody having to upload data and push it through a processing engine, making sure they're monitoring it and when it's available and searchable.
Even if Bill was doing that?
She said people that are smarter than her.
Too. Yeah.
Steve, on your end, on the law firm side?
Yeah, on the law firm side, it's sort of a practical outcome of the realization that this industry has grown up historically. We've all been consumed with size and speed, terabytes and minutes and all of that. It doesn't solve the law firm problem of, I have 60 PDFs, it's a Friday afternoon, please help me. Yeah. When you're in the transactional world, that is death by 1,000 cuts, and we have hundreds of those matters, a year. So we were looking, much like TracyAnn says, we were looking to sort of control our own fate and be able to sort of, reduce and quantify and costs and all of that, but we were looking to sort of control our own docket in a way and serve our case teams and prevent bleed out, because then if you can't help them for those, they become the weak gazelles that are subject to the drag and drop world out there, right? And we wanted to sort of try and prevent that, make sure our case teams, whether they had a terabyte where you usually have time to plan, those smaller case teams still got the service and the tools that they deserved, despite the size of the matter.
Yeah, so it's one thing for you all, the leaders in your departments, and to realize this and to say, this is the move we have to make. How do you get wide-scale adoption, first from the corporate angle and then from the law firm angle? Because you don't want people going rogue and doing their own thing if you're going to implement something like this.
Well, it's a very good question, actually.
Thank you. I worked on it for like a week and a half.
I figured you spent a lot of time to put me up first.
Gee, glad we weren't fed it ahead of time.
I think you can deliver value back in a lot of different ways. Yeah. You can take cases where it's gone to trial, they've done their self-collection, they've done their interviewing and everything, and it's had a mistrial. And the plaintiff has doubled down. Right. And then they come back to you and say, let's give it a shot at doing legal discovery your way. Yeah. And you put up the data, you run it, the best practices, and they conduct a proper legal review. And you get a phone call saying, I really wish we had done this at the beginning of the case, because guess what? Yeah. I'm going to produce these documents, and the $5 million demand that someone made just dropped. And then 2 months after that, it dropped considerably, and the case settled, because the way that people look at information is they go to you and say, hey, 2 years ago, what were you doing on Tuesday at 12 o'clock? Or what was your discussion with this person? People don't remember that. So that's one way that you can do it. The other thing is just to be timely and efficient every single time so you can build that trust. And that predictability makes people want to go to that model.
To build on that, I think on the law firm side, maybe corporate law departments have an easier time laying down mandates. This is the process, right? At a law firm, especially a sprawling one from Honolulu to Manhattan, that's difficult. So the adoption comes from small victories, word of mouth. Do it well, Do it over and over again. Do it well. That's the easiest way to get people to buy in. Because I talked to partner X, they said call. And you can't drop the ball. You got to do it consistently. And if you do, they come. And that's the easiest way for us internally.
No, that's helpful. And it's a long journey from, having that idea that you're going to move to the cloud and come up with this to actually implementing. What tips do you have for people on how do you implement something that's a pretty big change in the way things were being done?
For us, it was a change to sort of bring this type of a tool in-house. I think the smartest thing that we did was partner with people who were smart, that had technology that was pliable, because one black box does not fit all.
Yeah.
And so, we were looking for some technology that could do what we needed it to do, but was still pliable enough to do it in the way that we needed to do it. That made the implementation process much, much easier for us because it didn't look that different. It didn't take that much work to make it look like something that we did all the time. And that was a big key for us, a really big key. And again, having smart people on the other side of the phone helps quite a bit.
So we moved to the SaaS model after already being in operation for about 3 years.
Oh.
So for us, it was a natural sort of progression of how do we take our bread and butter cases of 100 to 400 cases, like Steve is saying, and get them through the mill and understand how we can leverage our internal knowledge of that so that the first pass review has a 95% recall rate, that the attorney, when he goes in there and reviews that document, says, you know what, out of 400 documents, 399 were responsive. So you get a lot of that sort of movement. Plus, you're able to really orchestrate that. So you're not waiting on somebody that's at the vendor side, that you're paying saying, and they hate it too. Is the data ready? Is it, can you search this? Can you do that? You get all these other rights. And we also have, our team is built with forensic analysts as well as people who have been on the vendor side, support law firms. So it was a natural sort of implementation that was easy to make.
So maybe just to put you on the spot, what was maybe just one challenge in that implementation phase that you had to overcome, and how did you do it?
Getting the contract signed.
Yeah.
That can be something. Yeah. What about you, Steve?
I think, introducing a new tool to the toolkit. I have a merry little band, small but mighty team, and like everybody else, they get very comfortable with the technology they're using, the processes they're using. You introduce a new tool, on top of the day-to-day work doesn't stop. That's a challenge to get people to pivot, to learn something new, as well as keep the lights on. That's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, maybe just to summarize some of those thoughts. That move to SaaS gets triggered by different things. It might be, small cases need to get handled one way, or there's just something specific about, benefits about doing that. Getting wide-scale adoption is about showing people the benefits, and how it will impact them from, a cost and a productivity standpoint. Appreciated your best practices for implementation and how you got over some of those challenges by, again, showing people, the benefit. Really appreciate you both for being, here at the live show.
All right, well, there it is, our last live segment from our first live show at Legaltech. A big shout out to all of our incredible guest speakers. We couldn't have done this without you. It was a great show. We look forward to doing that again in the future. We hope you all enjoyed it, and we will talk to you soon.